Right, day of very dramatic development. India up 2-1, last test 2-1, 2-2, 3-1. All possibilities were there, but it's kind of stayed at 2-1. The test in Manchester postponed indefinitely in the wake of a COVID-19 outbreak within the India squad. What we understand is that the two boards, the BCCI and the ECB, are talking about playing it on a later date. Here on ESPN Cricket for Newsroom, I've got Ian Bell and Nagaraj Golapuri. I'll start with you, Ian. Dinesh Karthik talked about the players getting the jitters once the assistant physio was infected. What do you make of the situation then as a player? Give us the player's perspective to something like this.
Yeah, look, I think it's a really tough position for the players on both sides to be in. Really, I mean, I think they've been incredible. I think in terms of sport, cricket's done a really good job in the last 12, 18 months to keep going, hasn't it, through a pandemic. So it's hard to, I suppose, consider all things that are going on. It's obviously happened so quickly. And I think from a cricket point of view and the players, I think both teams actually have been fantastic over a long period of time now, through the pandemic really as well, and got so much cricket played and entertained so many people. So you can see how it gets a little bit scary for the guys in that period when it gets very close and there's all close contact and what is to come. You know, you don't know what in the next couple of days with the isolation, more in this country, and especially with an IPL and World Cup cricket coming up as well in a very short space of time. So I'm sure both teams wanted to play. It's lined up amazingly well this series. So yeah, disappointing. And hope this all picks up, pretty quickly, and we see some more cricket soon.
What do you make of the situation and the Indian position? What's the Indian position exactly about, and how are they feeling right now? I mean, is there a little bit of a sense of having let the fans down?
I'm not sure if having let the fans down is the right way to look at it, but I think it's a sense of confusion mostly. It's been till if you look at it, till Wednesday afternoon, India were geared up to play the final test of the series where they're leading 2-1. And in fact, the mood at the training camp, I was told, was like they're so confident to make history. And then hours later, it changed completely when the assistant physio reported symptoms and tested positive. So suddenly the panic set in. And all kinds of things kind of came to the players' minds. That some of them, the senior players, most of them, in fact, are traveling with families. Some of them have kids. Family members got kind of stressed about it. And then they got involved with the BCCI. The BCCI was worried, obviously, about whether this will have an impact on the IPL and the T20 World Cup being played in the UAE and Oman, where the regulations are very stringent. So you don't want to kind of take something, excess baggage, to the UAE, where the government is very, very strict. And also there's Dubai Expo happening. So there's quite a few things that were at the back of BCCI's mind too. But more importantly, I think what the players also would have been concerned about is, remember this, that in the first week of May, some of these players were part of teams that had COVID positive cases, where it's expanding. And it was all confusion back then. And back then in India, which was going through, I think, the second wave, and the cases were so big and soaring, and IPL being played, the safest place, they said, was the IPL, and still the bubble was breached in a way. So for the players, at the back of their mind, mentally, they were like, obviously exhausted, that's one thing, but they were ready to play. But it was more about the fear of what could happen if there's one more case inside the bubble. Then what do I do?
What would you, hypothetically, as a spokesperson of the England team, perhaps speaking to the ECB, have been telling them? What would you want as a player in these circumstances?
Oh, it's a tricky one to say, isn't it? I think from the outside, I think both teams, as we've said there, I think all wanted to play. Both boards would have been trying every solution to try and play. It's going to be a very strange one, isn't it? If the thought of rearranging this test match in a year's time and it's still part of the same series will be very strange. You could have a completely different set of players, forms in a different place, and do you know what I mean? Individual form, team form. So it'd be really interesting to see how this one does play out. I'm sure, as we said, when George joins, what more he's heard. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that does play out.
And George has joined, hasn't he? George, yes, welcome. Ian was just saying when George joins, and as did Nagraj, he's going to give us a bit more of a current picture of where the ECB stands, where the England player stands. So over to you on that, George.
Well, I don't know what you've said so far, but I have literally just got off a call with Tom Harrison, who says he doesn't know the result of the series. He doesn't know whether, if there's a standalone game next year, it will count as part of this series. And doesn't, of course, know if that game will take place. So there's quite a lot they're not sure about at the moment. One of the key factors is this. The ECB are insistent it wasn't cancelled for COVID reasons. The relevance of that is, if it had been cancelled because of COVID, they would have no insurance. And with those payments supposedly up to £30 million, that is quite a big deal. So the ECB are claiming that it was cancelled because of the mental health concerns of the India squad and bubble fatigue, which is a subtle difference between that and saying it was COVID. It was, you could argue, the fear of COVID. But, there were 20 players who had negative tests yesterday. So, and in the end, it's going to be up to the ICC to adjudicate what the result of this game is, what the result of the series is. I spoke to chief executives from other independent nations today, test playing nations, and they said there was no way they would have played, in India's situation. I think it's unfortunate, the timing, it's hugely unfortunate, it's disrespectful to spectators, who I'm sure that almost everyone involved couldn't give a toss about, but it is hugely disrespectful to spectators. But, the ECB do have to reflect that for all the talk about protocols, they have let the same fat buffoon run onto the pitch for 3 games in a row and get, literally touch players. You can't claim to be having particularly tight protocols when you allow that to happen. And they have to accept that, they have abandoned games themselves, tours themselves. So the compromise solution is to finish the series in the English summer of 2022 when India are next here for a white ball tour. That would seem to be an imperfect solution to a pretty rubbish episode.
Ian, do you just want to sum this up? George mentioned protocols. We're talking about the fat buffoon. We're talking about possibly a book launch on the eve of the last test, possibly having a role to play here.
It's just like you said, and George said it there, it's a sad day, to do it, as well on the morning of the game where so many fans have already made the journey to Old Trafford. That they're the people that you've got to really feel sorry for today.
Absolutely.
For me, the series is done now. Yes, there might be one more game played in a year's time, but to me, that could be a completely different set of players on each team. It's a one-off game, as we said, to do the right thing for the TV deals and all the deals that that are missing this week. So, it's a really, I'm sure both boards are working hard to get the right solution. Is there going to be a right one? We don't know. We're not, like you said, not in the perfect world at the moment, are we? So, a shame that again the series we've had so far with so much entertaining cricket we don't get to see this final showpiece where England had an opportunity to fight back and India had an opportunity to win a really special series, which could go with winning away in Australia and England in a calendar year, which would be an amazing achievement on the road.